What's going on, everyone? It's Ben from YGF from Zero back with another breaker format video, and this will actually be my last breaker format video for quite some time, as we've sort of reached the end of my natural coverage of this format. I've sort of gone through all the decks that I can really think about playing that, sort of deserve their own special spotlight, either for being meta relevant or for being its own unique thing. And this deck definitely falls into the latter category, although what a cool thing it is. And now this is Paladin Blue Eyes, or Ritual Dragon, or whatever you want to call it. We tried out a Dark Magician deck in this format in the form of Dark Paladin. It was pretty neat. And Blue Eyes also received a bit of support in Magician's Force, so it's only natural that we got to try that out as well. Now, the Blue Eyes support is a lot less expansive than the Dark Magician support. It's just this new ritual monster, Paladin White Dragon, which is a level 4 ritual, 1900 attack, that says, at the start of the damage step, if this card attacks a face-down defensive monster, destroy that face-down monster. You tribute this card, special summon one Blue Eyes White Dragon from your hand or deck, but Blue Eyes White Dragon cannot attack for the rest of this turn. So, very interesting card here, and it actually is pretty good on its own. Right? Like, just being a monster that can deal with your opponent's sets without flipping them up is really strong at this time in the game's history, especially given, things like Magician of Faith, Gravekeeper's Spy, just powerful flip monsters that you want to stop. Also, things like Mystic Tomato or Prince Magician potentially as well. This card can deal with that too. And at 1900 attack, it's got a very good attack stat that matches up well against a lot of level 4 monsters in the metagame. So I think this card is really cool on its own, but also the fact that it brings up Blue Eyes is just the icing on the cake. You can even attack in with it to destroy an opponent's set, then tribute it in the main phase 2 to bring up Blue Eyes to deal a ton of damage to your opponent on the next turn. So I think this deck is really neat. However, fitting in a ritual package into this sort of deck, into this sort of format, is a bit tricky. And so it did mean that we had to cut out some pretty good cards that make this deck feel kind of underwhelming unless you have the combo online. So let's dive into the card by card, and hopefully you'll see what I mean. This deck is really cool, but I don't necessarily think it's the best, unfortunately. But starting out with the top, we got Break of the Magical Warrior, Fiber Jar, Injection Fairy Lily, Magical Scientist, Triple Magician of Faith, Sangan, Sinister Serpent, Tribe Infecting Virus, Witch of Black Forest. These are sort of your good stuff cards, or at least the ones that survived in order to, make the deck good when it doesn't have its ritual package online. And, we had to cut some very other good cards that were pretty decent as well. We cut a tomato package as well. So, we don't have easy access to Witch and Sangan. But honestly, the deck doesn't necessarily need it because you're already searching out the Paladins with Senju, and you're searching out the ritual spell with Sonic Bird. So I feel like it's fine to cut the tomato package here. It does make you a little bit monster light at a lot of times, unfortunately, though. For our ritual package, we've got one Sonic Bird, one Senju. Now, this is a bit tricky. It took me a while to actually, come to this ratio here, but it's just there are so many good cards in this format. You don't have the room to fit in 2 or 3 Senju and Sonic Bird like you would in something like Treasure format where Relinquished is popular. So I think you just have to have one of each. You can search these out with both Sangan and Witch, so if you do need the ritual monster or the ritual spell, you can have easy access to that if you do see Sangan or Witch. But I really couldn't justify playing more than one of these. And because we're only playing one Sonic Bird and one Senju, I'm not playing the most of the ritual spells or monsters either. We're playing 2 Paladin, because Paladin is a very good monster on its own, so you potentially want to bring this out twice in one game. But we're only actually playing one White Dragon Ritual. And partially that's because we're playing 3 Magician of Faith, so we have easy access to bring this back. And one of the reasons why we're playing Magician of Faith, I'll explain when we discuss these spells. But so hopefully that gives you easy enough access to White Dragon Ritual to be able to bring out your Paladin online enough for the time. And also we're only playing one Blue Eyes White Dragon. Now this is a little bit risky as Paladin cannot revive from graveyard. So if you get this Blue Eyes sent to the graveyard, either through something an opponent's discard spell or Painful Choice or something, you don't really have the easiest ways to bring it back. But as I mentioned before, Paladin is just a decent monster on its own. So it's not the worst thing in the world. You can still bring this out, get in for 19, or destroy an opponent's set monster. So, it's not the worst thing in the world. And a lot of the deck is designed around Paladin's effect. So let's just discuss the other cards here. Now, as I mentioned, we're playing 3 Magician of Faith, and the reason for that is we've got this triple Book of Moon. Book of Moon is both a disruptive card that you can use on your opponent's turn, potentially disrupting something like a Scientist FTK combo, but it can also be used to set your opponent's monsters down for easy attacking over with something like Paladin White Dragon. You can also use to reset your Magician of Faith, which is a really strong combo, and can enable you to continually reuse powerful spells. So I do really like Triple Book of Moon in this deck. We've got Change of Heart, Confiscation, Dark Hold, Liquid Duo, Graceful Charity, Harpy's Feather Duster, Mirage of Nightmare, Monster Reborn, Triple MST to pair with the Mirage of Nightmare. We've got Painful Choice, we've got Pot of Greed, Raigeki, Snatch Steal, Force of Century, and one White Dragon Ritual, as I mentioned before. For the traps, we've got Call of the Haunted Imperial Order, Mirror Force, and Ring of Destruction. Now, for the side deck, we're kind of teched out for a lot of the major threats in this format. We've got triple King Tiger Wanghu, triple Raigeki Break in case we're up against the Scientist FTK, and we need things that just either shut it down or provide more disruption. We've got a Kaiku the Ghost Destroyer in case we're up against a deck that really cares about its graveyard. We've got a Spirit Reaper. This is honestly just sort of a flex spot, and I sort of put Spirit Reaper in here because it could be good just to have a monster to stall your opponent while you're drawing into your ritual stuff. So I'm not sure really how I feel about this, but we had one extra spot in the extra deck or the side deck, I mean, and this is what we chose to do with it. We've got a Heavy Storm for more back row focused decks, along with Royal Decrees for more trap focused back row focused decks. We've got Double Moment Crossout and Ceasefire for more flip focused decks. And then for the fusion deck, we've sort of got the toolbox represented here. So we got Dark Balters, we got Darkfire Dragon and Dragoness for level reasons. We've got Fiend Skull Dragon, we've got Reaper on the Nightmare, we got Roaring Ocean Snake as the representative of the 2100 attack level 6 monsters. We've got Ryu Senshi, we've got Super Robo Lady, Super Robo Yaru, Lost Warrior from Another Planet, and double Thousand Eyes Restrict. Now, as I mentioned in all these past Breaker format videos, because the fusion deck was unlimited at this time, you could actually play it of any size, and so realistically this should be like you have access to like any fusion monster you'd want to. So, you know, if you do need a fusion monster that's not quite in the extra deck, then you could say to your opponent like, hey, I'm proxying this fusion card and just bring out like, I don't know, Reaper on the Nightmare to represent a dark. Well, you wouldn't need to represent Dark Balder because this deck's playing 3, but like a Reaper on the Nightmare, maybe to represent a second copy of Super Robo Lady. I don't know when that would come up, but it can potentially come up. So most of the time you're not going to wind up in those situations, but if it does happen, that is technically allowed. So, you know, that can come up in certain tournament settings and stuff like that. But, you know, I think the fusion deck is more just a toolbox for Scientists here, and we've got the cards that you're most likely to bring out off Scientists well represented. But that's going to do it for the deck breakdown. I think this deck is really cool, and I really enjoyed the games I played with it. So without further ado, let's dive in to our last featured games for Breaker format and see how this deck actually performs. Okay, we've got a game against Gabibo Balandi, who is a very active user on the YGO from Zero Discord. If you want to play any games in any of the formats that I feature on this channel, then that's the best place to do it. So head on over if you're interested. And that's also where I make the matches for these videos most of the time. Occasionally I get, you know, random people on Dueling Book, or, you know, I do a rated match through Format Library. But most of the time I'm arranging it through the Discord. But anyways, we are going first here, and this is a pretty great hand. We're going to start off with a duo here. This may seem weird. You know, you could potentially start off with a Graceful Charity instead of duo, but I kind of want to, like, know what I discard from their hand, so that way I can plan my discards off Charity a little bit better. So I'm going to start with the duo and hit 2 out of their hand, go for Graceful here, and then pitch a Fiber Jar and a Lily because we do have Mirage of Nightmare and MST in hand, so we can get a lot of value here. Also, it seems like they're on the Scientist deck because they're playing Reasoning and Magical Scientist, so, you know, we can't necessarily afford to get defensive with Fiber Jar, and I figure, you know, Tribe is probably more valuable than Lily because we don't want to be cutting our own life points down and making it easier for them to kill us. So that's why I do that, and I figured Tribe should be good enough. And we've got also Book in case they bring out a bigger monster to hit over Tribe. But yeah, we're just going to send a bunch. You know, we will draw off the Mirage here. And we've got the MST to pop it next turn. So we feel really, really good about this. And we draw some pretty good ones as well. So they're going to go for a Dark Hole here, clearing the Tribe. They're going to normal summon out this Gillosaurus here. Hit in for 14. I mean, we'll take that. We can save the book for disruption in case they're going for a scientist play. We are going to use MST to pop the Mirage here. We draw Pot of Greed, so we're going to fire that as well. And we're going to go for Forceful. See that they've got Last Will and Raigeki. We're going to send back the Raigeki. We could have potentially sent back the Will to prevent them from like comboing off, but we've got disruption in the form of Book of Moon. So I feel like we can sort of play around Will a little bit better. And we want to preserve our aggressive pressure because we want to be like getting in for damage here. So we're going to hit in to that Gilsaurus with this Break of the Magical Warrior. No need to pop something here. We're going to set another Book of Moon. If they've got like Snatch Steal, we could book the Breaker. Same with Change as well. If they've got Change of Heart, we can book the Breaker to prevent them from popping one of our back rows here. But they draw Reasoning. We're going to call a 1. This may seem a little bit interesting, but we don't want them to actually like bring out a monster off of Scientist that can deal with this Breaker. And I figure like if they bring out like a Catapult Turtle, then, you know, they contribute that off for Last Will, but they've put all of their resources into doing that. And we do have these books and a Snatch Steal in case they just sit on Catapult Turtle. So we do have ways to like deal with whatever they bring out. So I'd rather like if they do bring out a Scientist off the Last Will, they have to actually use the Last Will to do that. Than just hitting it off this Reasoning. Unfortunately, they do indeed hit the Turtle, so maybe I should have actually called 5. But they're not going to use priority on that, which is ultimately fine. We don't really have any way to stop that either way. So they're going to go for Last Will here. And we could potentially, in response to the Last Will activation, we could chain Book of Moon, setting down the Turtle and preventing them from even being able to get a monster out at all. But I figured it's still better just to save the Book of Moon for later. They're going to bring out a Scientist here. They're going to go for priority here and bring out a Ryu Senshi. Now, there wasn't really anything we could have done about this because, you know, Book cannot target Senshi. And if we had booked the Scientist, since they did use priority, they would still be able to land the Senshi on the field. So not really much we can do about that, but we do have a way just to clear the Scientist next turn with our Witch. So I don't really think it's that big of a deal. So we're feeling very, very good in this position. They're down to like top decks, and we've got a pretty stacked hand. We're going to bring out this Witch of the Black Forest here, hit into their Scientist, and pass back to them. They're just going to pass back to us, and this is great. We can bring out a Sangan as well, hit in for 2,100, and we are in a really, really good position, I think. We're going to pass back to them again. They're going to go for a Cannon Soldier here. They're not going to use priority. They're just going to hit into our Witch. That is perfectly fine by us. We can actually get a lethal line here if they don't have any disruption here. We're going to grab Scientist, but we could have just grabbed a bigger monster as well. They're going to go for card destruction, though. That's kind of unfortunate. We do lose 4 cards here, but we do draw just the way to win the game. So, but yeah, this does reveal that we are on Blue Eyes. So for game 2, they can potentially sort of plan around the Blue Eyes strat a little bit. So kind of unfortunate, but we are just winning this game, so no real need to scoop it up at the card destruction. We're going to bring out this Sinister Serpent, fire a Snatch Steal on the Cannon Soldier, and this will indeed be well over lethal because it is 2,700 through these monsters alone, and then we can trade off for Cannon Soldier just to close out the game here. So that's game 1. It went pretty well against the Scientist FTK deck, but I think they actually did have the FTK in hand. So if they had gone first, then we would have just hard lost there, because what they could have done is special summoned out Gilsaurus, Dark Holded away, Last Willed to bring out like, I forget, did they, I forget whether they had no, they did have Scientist in hand because we pitched it off duo. Yeah, they could have Last Willed out the Turtle and then, you know, summoned out Scientist and won. So they did indeed have the FTK, which does show how scary the Scientist FTK can be, especially if you're a rogue deck. We did get very lucky there, but, you know, oftentimes a rogue deck won't necessarily be able to put up the disruption to actually deal with the Scientist FTK deck. They do have the combo this game, though. They're going to fire Last Will here, pay 1,000 off the Scientist, fire a Metamorphosis on whatever they bring out. That will still preserve the monster that they bring out of Scientist. They also get Turtle, though, and that will indeed be the end of the game. So, yep, we're just going to go to game 3, and that can happen against these Scientist decks, but, you know, quite unfortunate that it does. We're just going to bring in the Wing, who's, I believe, I think we cut out, if I remember correctly, we cut out a Fiber Jar. It's not really that useful. We cut out some of our Faiths because, you know, it's a bit too slow. So I think we cut out Fiber Jar. I think we cut out 2 Faiths. We might have just cut out 1 Faith, though. Yeah, we cut out Fiber Jar and Faith for sure. And I forget what the third one is. It might be the additional Faith. But anyways, we are going to go into this game 3 here and hope that we actually manage to draw a way to deal with this. We draw 2 Raigeki breaks, which is good disruption. Now we got to think about this a bit because, we've got this Graceful in hand. We could fire it, but we might want to summon out the Senju first just to deck thin a little bit before firing the Graceful. But I think that we really want to draw into Wang Hu, and I think that, like, in order to maximize our chances of drawing into Wang Hu, we would summon out Senju, but like that does cost us our normal summon, so then we wouldn't be able to use the Wang Hu. So I just want to just take a risk and just go for Wang Hu here, as opposed to just summoning out Senju first. So I do that, and I pitch a Blue Eyes and a Harpies, because we didn't draw Wang Hu, so now we might as well deck thin. This gets us another card in hand. It gets us more discard fodder for the Raigeki breaks, so we'll set those pass back to our opponent. And unfortunately, they do indeed have True Nade, so that will bounce back all our cards here. They are going to Reasoning. We'll call 5 because that's a pretty threatening number there. If they've got Scientist in hand already, then it's pretty bad. They've got Scientist. They're going to fire Last Will. And maybe it was a mistake to, bring out Senju and attack here. Because, now they can crash into it with their stuff. But I don't know. I don't really think it would have mattered. Maybe it would have. They would have gotten in for 17 here. Yeah, they just had True Nade and MSC, so yeah, maybe it was a mistake to just summon out a monster for them to crash into. But yeah, I don't know. That's how it went. And yeah, not much we could have really done there. Actually, that's a funny sort of thing that Scientist decks can do. I haven't thought of it before, but if they play something like, Flame Ghost or a really weak fusion, they can actually crash it into their opponent's monsters and trigger Lost Will that way in a really tight pinch. So that's something good to consider in the fusion deck for those decks in the future. But yeah, maybe we misplayed summoning the Senju, but I think we had to go for the deck thinning, I guess. But yeah, I think we were probably going to lose here either way. They had more disruption on the following turn as well. They still had the Last Will combo online. So yeah, I think this one wasn't really in the cards for us, but that's how it goes sometimes. And against the Scientist deck, what we probably should have done is also sided out the Paladin package. But I'm playing this deck to show what this deck can do against the meta, against other rogue decks. So I feel like it's weird for me to side out the main reason why I'm playing this deck in the video for duels I'm featuring in the video. So I just wanted to show this off, and yeah, they will indeed win that one, but that's how it goes sometimes. The other decks I am featuring in this video, the other games I'm featuring, are against, less meta threats, so it should make for some fun jank times. So let's dive into those now. Okay, our next match is against Soul65, who's a frequent guest on the channel. Always a pleasure to have them on. We are going to go in the rock, paper, scissors, and we will win the rock, paper, scissors, so we feel good about that. They don't normally bring, like, Scientist FTK decks, but, just in case, it's good that we won. And this is a pretty killer hand here. We're going to start with a duo, hitting a Last Will, and they're going to pitch a Turtle, which is kind of scary. I said that they don't normally bring in, like, Scientist FTK decks, but this might be an exception. We're just going to set in Injection Fairy Lily, set Ring of Destruction, set Imperial Order. We could have also summoned the Injection Fairy Lily, but after last game, I don't really want to leave them a monster in attack mode to crash into. I feel like 1500 defense is a reasonable defense. We've also got Ring to deal with. They bring out a bigger monster to hit over it, so I feel pretty good about this. We're going to think about this a bit. Fire Last Will. We could potentially fire the IO on this, but I want to save the IO for more high impact spells, so I'm just going to let this go through. So maybe this was a bit of a mistake, but yeah, they've got the Exiled Force here, so that we'll be able to pop our Lily, will trigger the Will, and they are going to bring out a monster that we don't necessarily want to ring in the form of a Witch of the Black Forest. So maybe this was a bit of a misplay here. I think it's ultimately fine. If we draw a monster, we are sort of in the clear here. Unfortunately, we draw Change of Heart, which is a very good card, but not right now. We're going to set this MST, pass back to our opponent, and they're just going to hit in for another 1100. I mean, this is manageable at this point, but like it adds up quick, so we don't want to take too many more of these. But oh, Raigeki. I mean, I think we just have to do it. It feels really bad to use removal on this, but I think we just have to go for Raigeki popping the Witch. In order to make that go through, for sure, we're going to fire this Harpies here. It's a 1-for-2 trade, so it's not the worst thing in the world. And also, if they've got like a Call of the Haunted, we can clear it away before they actually are able to chain and bring back Witch and get a search. So yeah, they've got MST here, so we'll pop one of our back row. And unfortunately, they pop the IO, which is, oh, that hurts. We could chain the IO in response, but then we lose access to our Harpies and our Raigeki and our Change of Heart, so we just let that go, and that is very, very unfortunate. They're also going to ring their own Witch that actually does allow us to save our Raigeki in hand, so that's kind of nice. However, we're in kind of the same spot that we were in before, so kind of unfortunate. They get basically another attack in with Witch because of the ring, and yeah, they're going to bring in the Sangan as well and be able to hit in for even more damage. So it's not really looking the best for us here. But things can change in a heartbeat, and Pot of Greed will definitely help us out of that. So we draw some pretty good ones. We're just going to set this Magician of Faith here, pass back to them. We could have set a Mirror Force as well, but we don't want to play into Harpies now that IO is gone. And they're going to think about what to do here. They're going to hit into our set is Magician of Faith, so we'll grab back that Pot of Greed. Because, I mean, the other cards in our grave aren't really the best here. I mean, we could have potentially gotten Duo, cleared the Sangan, and then Duo their hand, but I don't know. They could have just searched out a Serpent and made that really bad for us. They're going to set one, pass back to us. We Pot of Greed here, and Tribe is a monster, so we will take it. We're going to fire Raigeki here, popping their board. They will get a search off the Sangan, searching out a Mystic Tomato. But that's ultimately fine. I just wanted to clear their board away in case they had like a Magician of Faith of their own or something. And we're just going to get in for 1600 off this Tribe. We're also going to set the Book of Moon here. I figure, Book of Moon is chainable to things. If they've got Harpy's Feather Duster, we could potentially chain it to set Tribe, although that's kind of awkward because, then Tomato can hit over it. But then we get Mirror Force in the follow-up to clear the Tomato later. But yeah, they're going to think about what to do here. They're just going to set one, pass back to us. And this Change of Heart's about to go really good here. We're going to fire Change of Heart on their set, see what it is. It's a Fiber Jar. We could potentially Fiber Jar the board and then return to the initial sort of starting hands. But I actually feel like we're in a pretty decent position at this point now. So we're actually going to hard tribute out a Blue Eyes and hit him for 3k. This puts them on a 2-turn timer. We also have the option to sort of force a draw, with Ring. And that might be a good option to do later. But they're just going to set 2, pass back to us. We draw a Fiber Jar of our own, which is a good reset button for later. But we're just going to hit into their set here. It is a Mystic Tomato, so they will be able to bring out a monster off that. They're going to bring out Scientist. Now, this is a bit of a thinker for us because we could potentially, set Fiber Jar, go for the draw option. It's just kind of awkward, though, because they could just bring out Balter. I mean, we've got Mirror Force, but if they also pay for, like, Senshi, that's kind of annoying. But if they do pay for Balter and Senshi, then they don't have enough to actually use Senshi's effect to, stop the Mirror Force. So, yeah, we could just leave the board as is and save our Ring as like a draw option sort of thing. But I think I do just want to get aggressive with the Ring. I don't want them to pull off any Scientist shenanigans here. So we're just going to deal with that. Set a Serpent, set a Mirror Force, because now they can't actually pay for 2 fusion monsters here anyways. So I feel fine about this. They're going to set one, and they're going to pass back to us. So we are drawing Painful Choice, which is really nice. We're just going to go for the Painful here. They've got IO. We've got this MST, and I feel pretty good about this. So I actually think I misplay off the things I send off the Painful. So I'm going to send Scientist and Reborn here either way, because if I have access to either of these cards, then I win the game, because I can bring out Scientist, bring out Balter, hit into their set, and that will be all she wrote. But beyond that, it's kind of iffy. I bring out a Breaker because I want a big beater here, because I potentially always just hit into their set with the Breaker and then hit directly for 3k. But beyond that, I think what I actually should have done is, also sent like the 1400 searchers like Sonic Bird and Senju, because that would have also been able to potentially beat over their set and then get in for lethal with the Blue Eyes. But I was thinking of like Don Zalug, and no one really plays Don Zalug here, so I don't think I should have been thinking of that, but it was my mistake. So I sent Forceful and Graceful. I mean, if they do give us Forceful or Graceful, I feel like we're in a really good spot either way, so it's not the worst thing in the world. But it is a bit of a misplay on my part. I think I probably should have just gotten greedy here. But they give us the Graceful, and we're going to fire the Graceful, and we find a Senju anyways, so this is ultimately fine. We're going to pitch a Fiber Jar and Mirage, and bring out that Senju, search out the Paladin White Dragon there, and then we're just going to hit into their set with the Senju, and they're just going to concede. Now, you might be wondering why we discarded the Mirage there, but at 14 cards in deck, I didn't necessarily want to go all in on this Mirage, especially because I'd have to discard the MST instead, and we only have one MST left in deck, so we don't want to lose to deck out, and I think it was probably best to do that, but we feel really good about that. And that was a great way to end game 1 there. Uh, Going into game 2, I don't really think we change much. I think we might bring in like a Wangu or two because we did see they were on Tomato. We saw that they did have the ability to go into the Scientist FTK potentially. So it would be good potentially to do that. They're just going to T-set pass back though. And I feel pretty good about this. We can just bring out Scientist, pay 1,000, bring out Balter, and then hit over their set. If it's like Mirror Force or something, that's unfortunate. So maybe we could have also brought out Senshi, but I don't want to go too low in life points at this point in the game, especially given I don't really have any protective traps in hand. So we're going to fire your Forceful Sentry now in main phase 2 here, see what they're working with, and we see that they've got a Snatch Steal, a Sangan, a Witch, and a Painful. Now that's a bit interesting because, if we send back the Sangan or the Witch, then we do have a potential way to deal with the other one because we can always reborn back our Scientist after they hit over it with the Sangan or Witch. And then, bring out Balter, hit over their Recruiter, and then cut them off of any monster access there. But I am a bit worried about like the Snatch Deal and the Painful. Painful could like just give them access to a Sangan or Witch anyways, or just any monster that they might want to have. And we get to pick the monster that they get. But just giving them monster access is something that I don't necessarily want when I'm in a fragile situation with these Scientists as I am. And Painful can also like give them a hand rip, it can give them a power spell. So I feel like Painful is actually the more threatening card here. It's also a card they can't search out. And if they draw it in the late game, it's a lot worse for them than if they draw like Sangan or Witch in the late game most of the time. So I actually will just send back the Painful. And it may be a really weird decision. I'm still not sure if it's the correct decision or not. But I think it's ultimately okay. And then I'm just going to leave the Scientist and play pass back to them. I don't want to set either of my power spells here because I'm afraid that their set might just be an MST, given that they didn't do anything on our Scientist into Balter play. So I don't really think their back row is live outside of an MST, and I don't want to like set a bluff, have it be MST'd, and then feel bad about that because our cards are really good, and we want to keep them in hand, especially the Hard Feather Duster, given we know about the Snatch Steal. So we draw a Snatch Steal of our own, which is kind of funny. We're just going to bring out the Sonic Bird here, get a search of White Dragon Ritual, and then we're going to go for the Reborn, bringing back Scientist. This will enable us to pop the Witch with Balter, and we're going to put the Scientist in defense. Maybe they didn't want to play around Mirror Force turn 1, or maybe they didn't want to fire the Mirror Force turn 1 if they've got it. So we don't have to lose our entire board here. But it looks like, they're not going to Mirror Force if they've got it. So now I am just going to set the Snatch Steal, pass back to them, as Snatch Steal would die to MST here either way. Now maybe this was a mistake because, if I keep the Snatch Steal in hand and then I go for Harpies later to pop the MST, then, they won't be able to chain MST, hit Snatch Steal. But given their hand, there's not really much that I'd want to snatch from them anytime soon. So I figured it's fine just setting it. They're going to Forceful, though, and send back a Magician of Faith, which is really unfortunate. We wanted to use that to bring back Reborn later. To bring out Scientists yet again. But unfortunately, it didn't quite work out that way. We draw Duo, though, which is very, very nice. So we're going to get a little bit greedy here. We're going to hit into the Sangan. They will get a search off that, but we do have Duo to potentially snipe whatever they search. They're going to grab a Mystic Tomato. And then in main phase 2, we're just going to fire the Duo. Hope to get lucky. 1/3 chance of hitting the Tomato. And we do indeed hit the Tomato. If we didn't hit the Tomato, that would be kind of rough. They'd be able to crash into our Sonic Bird, bring out like another Tomato. And that'd be unfortunate. But, there are many top decks that potentially get us out of a situation like that. So it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. And I think depriving them of 2 cards in hand is still pretty nice. So we got lucky there, though, and they might not have a way to deal with the Sonic Bird. They're just going to bring out Exiled Force, actually, and pop the Sonic Bird that way. And I feel really good about that. We draw a Pot of Greed, which is very, very nice as well. We're going to draw 2 there. We're going to bring out a Tribe Infecting Virus, hit in for 1,600. And we're going to pass back to them. They're going to draw 1, and they're going to go for an MST on our back row, so it was indeed the MST. So we had the right read on that, so maybe we just shouldn't have set this Snatch Steal at all. But I think it's ultimately fine. They used it up on that. It would have probably been used up on that anyways. They're going to hit in to our tribe with the Tomato, bring out a Scientist, and then suck that up in main phase 2. I think that probably is the correct play there, although it does put them in a very vulnerable position. So hopefully we'll be able to exploit that position next turn. We draw Mirror Force, which is really nice. What we were planning on potentially doing here is just normal summoning Magician of Faith, hitting into Scientist. But now with Mirror Force, we feel really good because we set Magician of Faith, set Mirror Force. They have to bring out 2 fusions to actually deal with this board. And if they bring out 2 fusions, then they can't like pay 1,000 for Sentry, for instance. So I feel really good about this. And we're just going to set the Faith, set the Force, pass back to them. They're going to switch the Scientist to Defense, set another, pass back to us. We draw Sangan. But this should probably be the end of the game. Although I don't actually think we can kill them this turn. We're going to go for the Feather Duster here, though, just clear their back row. It's a last will. That was a bluff. We're going to flip up Magician of Faith, go for Reborn. We could have also gone for the Pot of Greed, but I feel like we can set up a better board with the Reborn. So we're going to bring out Sangan, fire this Reborn here, bring out Scientist here. And we could potentially, get a bit greedy here, bringing out 2 monsters off Scientist to hit into both their sets, and then tack in for 1,600. But instead, I'm just going to bring out a Balter. And I do think I make a bit of a misplay here. I should have summoned out Scientist in attack, because I already have a 300 attack point monster in attack anyways, so, like, it's not really about, protecting from damage. I've also got Mirror Force to stave off damage. And if I had brought out Scientist in attack, then I would have been able to deal 600 damage here with the Scientist and the Faith. And then they'd be at 1,600, and next turn I have exactly 1,600 attack to potentially kill them. So that's what I should have done. I don't do that, unfortunately. And, I'm just going to hit in for a fair amount of damage there. And, Balter goes back to deck. Not really much they can do here, though, so I feel like this is ultimately fine. They're just going to set one, pass back to us. Given that our clock is the same either way, we're just going to attack him with the Sangan here. I leave the Faith in attack because I'm trying to bait them into firing Mirror Force, because they might think, like, oh, 2 monsters instead of 1. That's better, right? But yeah, I'm not going to attack with it. I'm just going to switch it to defense, set this MST, pass back to them. They're going to set another. We're just going to blind MST that. It's a last will, and this should be the end of the game. So we're just going to attack him with that Sangan. So that was just a Comfy. So yeah, not really much they could do here. So very, very good showing for the deck. Game 2, we didn't really get to show off much of what made this deck special, but game 1, we actually got to show off the Blue Eyes. Not through Paladin, but we still got to summon Blue Eyes, which was still really, really cool to see. So, I still haven't been able to bring up Paladin, though, which is a bit unfortunate. So I played one more game against Soul, trying to bring out that Paladin at, any way I could. So let's dive into that and see how that one goes. Okay, we got one last game against Soul 65. And they're playing a little bit of a variation on the deck that they were just playing. The deck that they were just playing was apparently a Necrofear deck, and this deck will also be a bit of a variation on that. So they mentioned that at the end of the previous game, like after we, sort of finished it up and we're discussing more. And they wanted to play one more time with this. So we're going to open, and we draw a crazy opener here. Forceful plus Duo plus Painful plus Scientist. We've got the Ritual combo online already. So we feel really, really good about this. But we're going to start with Forceful first and then go for Duo. In the past, I've been in favor of going for Duo then Forceful. I can see the arguments for and against. Like, you go for Duo then Forceful if you're pretty confident the opponent doesn't have, like, a Sinister Serpent in hand, or, like, you're just willing to take that risk. And most of the time I am willing to take that risk. But here I think we've got the game on enough of a lock that I don't need to. So I'm just going to start with Forceful, see how it worked out for us. But we go for Forceful, and we see a pretty powerful hand here. Now, I think what we want to take is the Io, because Io is a crazy card and also shuts down our White Dragon Ritual. So we're going to shuffle that back into the deck. Now, of course, it would have been nice if we had hit that off Duo, but that would have been a 1 in 5 chance. And so it's probably better that we just shuffle it back with Forceful. But yeah, we're now going to fire this Duo here. They'll pitch a Meta and a Cannon. And we feel decent about that. So all they've got is Painful Sangan. And I feel good about that. We're just going to set this Painful, pass back to them. We don't really need to commit anything to board right now or fire the Painful right now. We want to see what they do in response here. If they, draw MST off the top, or if they Painful into an MST. I mean, first of all, we can choose what to give them, so we don't have to give them the MST. But we can also sort of manage our resources a bit to make it so that we've got the Paladin White Dragon online, potentially a Blue Eyes online pretty soon as well. We could have actually in this opener, we could have gone into Blue Eyes, because we could have summoned up Scientist, paid 1,000 to bring out Darkfire Dragon, White Dragon Ritual that away, bring out Paladin, tribute Paladin, bring out Blue Eyes. But I think it's going a bit too all in on the first turn, and there are many things that could have punished that. So I choose to do it the way I do it, save Paladin for later. I think we can get some value off that. They're just going to bring out the Sangan, attack in for 1,000. Main 2, they're just going to set 1, pass back to us, and we draw the Blue Eyes. So we get a little bit punished for not going to Blue Eyes first turn here, but we're just going to fire Painful, send Sonic Bird, Senju, Comfy, Harpies, and MST here. So 2 of them clear their back row, 2 of them give us a level 4 to tribute for Paladin, and 1 of them is a hand rip. So I feel like they're probably... Oh, they give us the Sonic Bird. That's actually the worst option for us. Best for them. But yeah, I mean, yeah, if we didn't have White Dragon Ritual, then Sonic Bird would have been great there. But maybe they figured since we were dumping them that we already had the combo online. So kind of unfortunate. But we are just going to go into the Dark Balter here, hit over their Sangan, pay them 1,000, and then hit in for another 300. So we feel very good about that. Balter will go back to the extra deck. We'll pass back to them. If they don't have a monster here, that is very threatening. Unfortunately, they painful, so this will potentially get them into a monster to deal with Scientist. They're going to send Orc, Reasoning, Snatch Steal, Premat, and Gilla. Honestly, I think we are less afraid of Gilla, although Gilla could really come back to bite us here. Because if they've got like a Last Will set, then if they special Gilla... Well, if they have a Last Will set, then anything here could be threatening. So yeah, I think Gilla's the best choice. Because we know about the meta that they've got as well. Or no, wait, they discarded meta. So actually, yeah, there is... Yeah, actually, Gilla might not be the right choice. Because if they've got Last Will Turtle, then that does just end the game. Because what they can do... if they can special out Gilla, tribute off for a turtle, then fire Last Will. So we could potentially get punished here for giving them Gilla. But if they don't have exactly Last Will Turtle, then I think we're fine. Famous last words, but I think it's ultimately fine. So we give them the Gilla. They are going to special summon out that Gilla, so we do get a monster back. All we've got is Senju engraved, so it's not much, but it's something at least. And they're going to tribute that off for a Jinzo there. They're going to hit over our Scientist for 2,100, which is a fair amount of damage. They're going to pass back to us, so I feel very good about that. We just Pot of Greed, which is very nice. We draw 2 outs to Jinzo here. We just got to choose which one we want to use. We're going to bring out Tribe Infecting Virus here. We're going to Fire Tribe, pitching this Sonic Bird, and then getting in for 3,000. Now, we could have potentially gone for the White Dragon Ritual as well, but I don't really feel the need to do that yet. We've got a really good board state online here. We can save the Paladin White Dragon for a late game sort of bomb, and we don't really need it right now. So they're just going to pass back to us, and we draw MST, so actually we can just go for lethal here. We're going to fire MST on their back row, and this is kind of funny because it's not really how it's intended to go. But we're going to fire a White Dragon Ritual, tributing the Blue Eyes in hand to bring out this Paladin of White Dragon, because it's just 4 or more. It doesn't have to be exactly 4. And this will be over lethal damage here. So that was the only way we really could have done it. So kind of funny to see that we actually managed to do it that way. Yeah, because we're only playing 1 Blue Eyes. If we were playing 2 Blue Eyes, we could have actually... no, that wouldn't have worked. So yeah. This was the only way we could have really done it here that I can see. So kind of unfortunate because we didn't get to show off Paladin that much. It was sort of just used as a late game extender. But we still managed to bring it out, so that's kind of cool. And we could have brought it out earlier in the game if we were being a bit less careful. But I do think that being careful is generally pretty good. And we did win that game there either way. So kind of unfortunate that didn't really get to show off its stuff too much, but I do think that that was the best way we could have played that game. This is a pretty great opener hand, though, so we feel pretty good about this. They're going to start with a Reasoning. We're going to call 5, just in case they have the Scientist combo online. They hit a Gillosaurus, so they do get a monster on field. They're going to go for Graceful here. They're going to pitch 2. They're going to think about exactly what to pitch, and they're going to pitch an MST and a Sangan, which are kind of interesting choices. We're going to send a 5 again because, if they, don't have a Catapult Turtle or something in hand, to pair with Last Will, I feel like they would have just, if they had Catapult Turtle Last Will in hand, they would have just tributed out the Gillosaurus and then Last Will out Scientist in 1. So I figure they probably don't have that combo quite online, so I do want to just prevent them from getting to Turtle. Unfortunately, they hit a Scientist, so that's kind of rough. But again, they don't have Last Will in hand, I don't think, at least if they don't have Turtle. So yeah, what they need here is Turtle exactly, so... Or they just have another tribute monster and Last Will as well. Okay, that also does it. Yeah, quite unfortunate. They are indeed playing Turtle in the deck. So, yep, that will be the end of the game. So that's Scientist FTK for you. I mean, in a different package, but it can work as an engine in certain decks. So, that can happen in this format. It's something that you kind of got to get used to if you want to play in this format. But it didn't necessarily happen the most. And we did manage to win game 1. So it's still anyone's game going into game 3. And we are going first. So we will potentially have disruption to prevent them from doing something like that in game 3. But yeah, we are going to go first, and this is a really good opening hand here. Wow. And it gets even better with this Comfy. We're going to fire the Comfy now. Again, just like with the Duo before the Graceful, I want to sort of know what I want to discard off Graceful. I mean, Serpent is definitely a card I'm discarding off Graceful, but I think it would be good just to get even more knowledge. So we see their hand. We see that they've got Hot S, Call of the Haunted, Snatch Steal, Card Destruction, and Premature Burial. So I choose to take the Hot S because that kind of shuts off the rest of the hand. I mean, Call can't bring back Hot S, Pre-Back can't bring back Hot S, and they can't Snatch Steal one of our monster tribute over it for Hot S. The one thing that I maybe should have done instead is maybe Card Destruction instead, because Card Destruction could draw them out of the bricky hand that they're in. But I feel like this is ultimately fine. And we got ways to deal with the other stuff as well. So we're just going to take the Hottest, go for a Graceful Charity here. And we draw 3 potentially good ones. So we already have the Paladin White Dragon in hand, so we don't really need to send you. So we're going to pitch that. We're going to bring out this Sonic Bird to search off a White Dragon ritual. And now this is kind of unfortunate if they do go for like a card destruction here. But I do set the White Dragon ritual just in case, because we've only got one White Dragon ritual in deck. So I don't necessarily want to use it right now. Again, just like before, we could have like used White Dragon Ritual here, tributed off for Paladin, tributed Paladin for Blue Eyes. But they've got Snatch Steal in hand that we do know about, so we don't necessarily want to do that. So we'll play it safe, potentially fire it next turn. But they're just going to go for the aggressive card destruction here. And makes sense because they drew Necrofear, which is also a brick. So they really need something to get them out of that bricky situation. So yeah, they had to fire Card Death. Unfortunately, our Paladin is shut off for now. We do have another one, though, in deck, so we can put it back online later. They're just going to set 3, pass back to us, and I feel very, very good about this, especially given we've got Pot of Greed. We're going to grab back that Sinister Serpent, fire this Pot of Greed. They've got IO, so, that will stop our Pot of Greed from really resolving much. But we're just going to hit in for 14 with this Sonic Bird here. Get in for some chip damage. Main 2, we're just going to pass back to them. No real need to commit the Serpent yet. Maybe I should have anyways, to just get in a little bit more chip damage. But if they have a way to get to Hot S, then that's really bad for us. We draw Mirror Force, though, which will potentially protect our Serpent if they've got a way to get to Hot S or Balter. We're just going to set the Mirror Force, set a Serpent, pass back to them. And they're going to think about this, and they will indeed let the IO lapse this turn. They're going to go for Painful Choice here, and they're going to send... What are they going to send? They're going to send Dark Hole, Reasoning, Giant Orc, Last Will, and Last Will. I think of these... Honestly, I'm not really that afraid of Giant Orc. I mean, that can clear the Sonic Bird, but then it's in defense. We can flip up Serpent, attack over it. So yeah, I feel like Giant Orc is the best pick. So we're going to give them that, and then the others will go to Grave there. And they're going to bring out the Orc, hit over our Sonic Bird most likely. And that is perfectly fine by us. We do lose our bird, but we're in a really good spot. They fire Mirage, and we don't have a way to out that. So unfortunately, we'll be able to draw a fair amount here. But we can potentially use Forceful to this, and that's part of why we were saving Forceful. It wasn't really worth doing when they just had one card in hand after setting a bunch. So yeah, we're just going to hit in to their Orc there with the Serpent, fire Forceful, see what they're working with. They've got Cannon Soldier, Metamorphosis, Wang Hu, and Pot of Greed. We're going to take away the Pot of Greed, deprive them of drawing into more cards there, and leave them with Wang Hu, Cannon Soldier, and Meta. Now, if they bring out Wang Hu, we can clear it with Force. It's not the worst thing in the world. We can also clear it with Dark Hole as well. So we got multiple options to clear their board there. They're going to draw one, and they do have the MST there for the Mirage. And they're going to fire a Wang Hu here, and they're just going to hit into the Serpent. And we just are going to Mirror Force that. We could have potentially just let it go through and then Darkhold, grab back the Serpent, but I don't know. We might as well just get aggressive here. We draw Fire Jar, which is kind of funny. We are very satisfied with the current game state. So we're just going to actually summon out that Fire Jar and hit in for 800 damage. So we feel very good about this. And, I mean, we do know about the Cannon Soldier in hand. But, we got ways to deal with Cannon Soldier. We got Dark Hole. We got Call to bring back something to hit over it as well. So we feel good about this. We're going to fire Mirage now. We don't have an out to Mirage, but given that we've got the Call of the Haunted set, if we do lose the Scientist, then we can bring that back with Call. So it's not the worst thing in the world. But hopefully we draw an out, and we do indeed draw the MST there. So that's very nice. We can use it to pop the Mirage. They're going to bring out a Wang Hu here, hit over the Fiber Jar. That is fine. We'll take 12. And main 2, they're just going to pass back to us. Now, we get ahead of ourselves and go to main 1 here, but we are planning on doing MST on the Mirage. It's just Force of Habit going M1. So, this could have potentially backfired for us, but either way here, I think we do just win because, I mean, we got call to bring back whatever monsters we lose here. We get Darkhold to clear the board. I mean, we are in a winning spot. So, but yeah, they try and roll, and I just go for the MST here. And, this could potentially be seen as like BM if you were in a tournament, because it could be seen as like, oh, they took a card that I didn't want them to take out of my hand, so I'm firing MST now. But like, you're always going to fire MST on Mirage if you've got it. So, but yeah, I was a bit late on my response there. So, if they had said like, no, we're pushing through with this, like you went to main, you didn't fire this in standby, then I would have been like, okay, sure. I think we still probably would have won here. So we're going to hit in with the Lily, and then we got called to bring back whatever monster we want to from grave, and that will deal the last 300. I think we bring back Serpent, technically. But yeah, they reveal that they don't have anything there. But yeah, that will be the end of the game. So we weren't able to bring out the White Dragon Ritual in this game 3 here, even though we did get kind of close. But the deck was still able to win against some rogue sort of challengers. It wasn't necessarily able to win against the full-on Scientist FTK in match 1. To be fair, I'm not sure many decks would, but, we had potentially a chance to win that game 3 that we didn't. So I think this deck is probably still like rogue, especially because, like, oftentimes the ritual stuff can be a brick, plays poorly into, like, Mystic Tomato. Yeah, it's just kind of rough. But I do think this is a really fun deck to play, and it's cool to see that sort of Blue Eyes and Dark Magician become more rogue strategies in this format. Magician's Force was really good for the anime lovers out there who want to play the iconic archetypes there, really giving them the first breadcrumbs that they could actually use to do that. So very, very cool that I got to show them off, and I think that's a perfect note to end my regular coverage of Breaker format on. So from here on, we're going to be covering like MFC format, which is sort of the unlimited format that you get when you play all the cards from Magician Force at 3. In practice, it doesn't really change much because Scientist is already at 3. But like 3 Breaker, 3 Tribe is still very good. It can make decks a lot more aggressive, as those are pretty good beaters. So we'll be exploring that, and then after that, we'll be diving into Vampire format, which should be a blast to play. So if you want to be around for those videos, definitely subscribe to the channel. We're almost at 1,000 subs. It would be really great if we could reach that by the end of the year. So if you're not already subscribed and you enjoy this content, definitely subscribe. Also, let me know what you think of this deck down in the comments below. Do you think that Blue Eyes is just cope, or do you think these games have sort of convinced you that the deck can be good in the right circumstances? Let me know in the comments below. I always look forward to our discussions, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Until next time, I've been Ben from YGO from Zero, and I'm signing off.